Welcome back from the commercial break. We continue the discussion, and I would like to welcome you, Dr. Doreen Akunda. We continue to face challenges in this country, our motherland, Uganda. And as we speak about this subject matter, the taxation and city management, which I believe should favor the citizen economic welfare. That's why we bring this discussion on table. We would not like to have a scenario where one time I was buying some few items from a market and I negotiated. I say, let this side buy this, I buy this. And one said, you want me to go back to the village? It was a statement by a lady, and I felt it for her. And indeed, if the system is not favorable, the taxation system and the city management system, if it is not favorable, it will cause most of our citizens to languish in poverty, and unemployment will be the challenge, the order of the day, which all of us would like to get attention and say, what can we do in order to have a favorable environment that can support the young entrepreneurs and those in business to continue. You may be having a version, and I do expect so, which can streamline the best way of how things should be done, taxation and city management, not only Kampala, and even other cities which are upcoming.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Thank you so much, Dr. Joseph. Once again, speaking of that, we just have to take a look at the urban cities progressive management. What do I mean here? It has basically around 7 descriptors. These 7 descriptors, among them is the linkage policies. For our cities, for urban cities to progress, for urban cities to make sure that we realize socioeconomic transformation, there has to be a linkage in policies. A policy that may favor, let's say, traders, it should be, there should be a way it links directly, or it should have a connection with a policy that, let's say, favors like the main importers, or even the policies that govern, let's say, URA, as it comes to collect its taxes from people. And then also, the other descriptor is that there should be minimum wages. The minimum wages are in a way that, if you take a look at cities, let's say in these other developed countries, at one point I want to imagine that's where we're heading. When you take a look at what they're going through, realize that the different cities have minimum wages. I'll give an example still of China. For instance, I was in Wuhan, but let's say teachers, because the most job that foreigners used to do was teaching. So let's say what teachers are paid in Wuhan is different from what teachers are paid in Beijing. You get it?
So what could you recommend in what you've been hearing about? You've had the minimum wage of Uganda, and what could you think should be the minimum wage that should be adopted? Okay, I'm not diverting you, but you want to localize it as my colleague said it.
Okay, for the minimum wage of Uganda, I remember that time when I had just come back, way back in, I came back in August 2020, but I remember I worked in one of the offices of, it's a government agency. I walked in there and I was trying to lobby for an investor that wanted to come in from China. So he tried to understand the minimum wage of the local citizens here. Why? Because this investor wanted to understand the least or the much he can pay the locals here in Uganda. But honestly, I tried to follow up. The policies, the bills that have been passed by the parliament, but it came out and I came to learn that there is no minimum wage for our country. And that is absurd, yeah. So in a way, the government has left it at the discretion of the employers. You get it? So you find that the local person or the employees instead are suffering. But it's one thing that we forget, that it has helped these other different cities in developed countries to make it up there. So there should be a minimum wage. As again, giving an example of the pay they give, like in Wuhan, is totally different from the pay someone earns in Beijing. Why? Because the standards of living are totally different. Beijing is the capital city, so the cost of living is way up there. It's very expensive. In Wuhan, it's also developed, of course, everything is there, but the minimum wage we get, or as a teacher, let's say like $2,000 is totally different from what a teacher earns in Beijing, which is like $4,000, close to that, $4,000. So realize that there should be a minimum wage. Why? Because if there is no minimum wage in these different cities, then it means that people are going to somehow be pinned, or they're going to be pressed. So you find that people may not be able to pay, or to pay up the taxes that are required of them. Then the other descriptor of urban cities progressive management is that there should be rent control. At some point, the government needs to chip in. It should come and like govern these other landlords that we see around here. The time when COVID had hit us as a country, we thought, and people thought and expected here, that maybe the landlords are going to excuse them of some rent. But and then of course they gave them that grace period of like a year. But I want to assure you, in a country like China, people were given a holiday for rent. Rent holiday. Yes, so the government instead came in to make sure that they pay the landlords themselves. Yeah, and then the other descriptor is that there should be affirmative action policies so that there is balance in society and in communities. You know, this comes with diversity. I mean, women don't have to, let's say, lead. That happens in China, by the way. Women are doing so well, better than men. And then when you come here, in our own Uganda, we don't want to find a society whereby men instead dominate even in business. I mean, they've dominated in almost all areas.
But yeah, it is believed that the affirmative action, the favor for you women here is
amazing. It is very okay, because for a long time we've been left out. Okay. Then the other descriptor is about public transit. When you look at these other urban cities, you find that, I mean, one of the things that characterizes them is that people tend to move a lot in these urban cities. So if you realize that there are no infrastructures in place to enable people move, then it will be very hard for the government to get the taxes it needs from these people.
If the people are not moving, the government will not get taxes.
It will not.
So that means our taxation compared to GDP remains low.
Yes, the taxation base is going to still keep low. Okay. And then also there is mixed use of development. Yeah, how is this? This is in a way that the government doesn't have to rely on just one thing. I mean, all sectors, I understand our agenda has kind of moved towards just infrastructure. When the first agenda I mentioned at the start of 2040, as a country, Uganda, we've tended to shift away from these other sectors of health and education. But in my view, it is actually not right. Why? Because these are almost the main sectors. When you just take a quick look at our neighbors here in Kenya, you find that at least they are doing somehow better. When you compare our health sector, our education sector here, it's still lacking. You get it? When you look at, when you go to the northern, I mean, in Karamojong region, we know it has had quite a number of challenges, but you still find that they are still doing so badly. But again, what confuses some of us is that it has almost a whole ministry, right? At the office of the Prime Minister. Yeah? There is a Minister of Karamojong, but what has happened? What has gone wrong? Yes, of Karamoja, sorry. So you tend to question what has happened and what has gone wrong. Of late, it is very insecure. People that go there, they are killed actually because of these the cattle wrestlers and all that. But it's very absurd. So you find that the government needs to use that mixed use of development, in that the sectors need to be balanced without just focusing on infrastructure. Yeah, it is the main, and maybe it's the most funded, and maybe the donors look at that as like the driving force towards development, but we are still behind as a country. Yeah. And then lastly, the other descriptor is about prudence growth policies. Yeah, if a country is developing, one of the indicators that we need to bear in mind is that there has to be growth in population. Yeah, you will not expect growth, you will not expect development in a country when the population is stagnant or when it is low. I'll still give an example.
We're not the third in the world.
Yeah,
really?
Yes.
Yeah, when you take a look at a country like India, like China, even US actually, or let's just zero it down to our own Africa. When you look at Nigeria, its population is way up there. When you look at Ethiopia, Yeah, leave alone the issues they have apparently, but these are countries that have very big populations. Yeah, when you take a quick look at...
What could you recommend? Because I was taking note of this, and the policymakers who are interested over there, and researchers,
Yes.
we are drawing a number of lessons. What could you recommend in this, descriptor of managing the population? You called it prudential policies,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. So
And referring to Kampala, where we are overpopulated. Yes.
I understand. Yeah, it's not just Kampala. You understand we have now 14 cities countrywide.
Yes.
So what I would recommend, or some of the approaches that the government can tend to look at, is about infrastructure design and delivery. Still, it comes back to infrastructure. Why? Because the infrastructure, if it's in place, then you can be rest assured that people are going to access most of the services.
I think, Doctor, on that point, I will chip in. There is a need to consider, and Honorable, you take note of this, at least you are aware, even as we refer to the National Women Plan, which is not well realized, to have a deliberate, prioritization of developing our slums, the urban housing policy, of which is able really to begin to reduce the existence of too much slums and the so-called ghetto areas, and we do better. I appreciate you, nevertheless, I appreciate you for all that you have submitted. They are very important, and where you talked about education and health, when our health system is not supportive to the population, because the two must match. And to say that you are doing city management is not when you are doing politics. To say, this and this is the one who is the king. No, people want services. I think it was a good, serious insight in that. And for the policymakers and the viewers, these are the demands that we should make. We stop politicizing taxes and city management. We go to the real services that people need. That's what can help. Honorable, I would like to welcome you again. We are moving on very well, and we believe building on this subject matter of our discussion, it can add value to the next level of our country.
Well, I think one, for me, going forward, what is key, because it is leaders, politicians who make these decisions, there is need for the political will that if you're occupying a political position, you are occupying this position on behalf of the people who gave you the mandate. And so the political will here is key, that they need to devise positive tax regimes.
Positive tax regimes.
Yes, tax regimes which are positive,
yes,
with incentives to support especially startups.
Why is it delaying takeoff? The language you are speaking is a very good one. And I'm very able to recall every year we get almost 400,000 graduates who want to survive. The government, the truth of the matter, I cannot condemn it, cannot provide all these jobs. Countries which have developed, and I'm liking it the way you are bringing it, but we need to act.
Yeah, we need to act.
Countries which have developed, they do encourage entrepreneurship. And after they have excelled, they are bringing what they're exporting. People to come here, they are coming here to do entrepreneurship. Look at the Indians. And from the beginning, when our economy was taking off, the Indians, for them, in their cultural attitude and behavior, they know that they must go and make business and do business.
Exactly.
Why are we not supporting this to happen in Uganda, and at the same time it solves an employment problem?
I think there has not been a very positive political will from across the divide. You find I am NRM. I can give an example of, say, Kampala, where we've seen there's always been a lot of fights between the political divide. In totality, our politicians, we are ignoring the people who have given us their mandate to serve them. That is why it is in my best interest that we the politicians, with a task to make decisions on behalf of millions of Ugandans should have a positive political will, such that instead of us fighting between the political divide, we should fight to serve the interest of the common person. And also the common person, the voters, should know that if we politicians are not serving their interest, then after the contract has expired, they should think about, do we need to take back Odoy or not? If he's not serving your interest, then why give him another chance? Look for another opportunity. But our country is blessed with a very thriving population. The population that we have as a country is one of the best things that can actually spark off development, socio-economic transformation in this country. But government must bring in skills development, personal development, skills development onto the population, such that our productivity is not subsistence. There's that word the president has been speaking every time and again, echida chonka, working for the stomach. Ideally, that is what is happening in our society. So as leaders, we should push government. We should budget for funds that our population are embraced with skills to produce at the maximum of their level.
I want to bring a critical point in this matter where we were appreciating and we are applauding that we need to do something. The service delivery, it is one of the area indeed that drives socio-economic transformation. In most cases, from the beginning, in our early days, where we were growing, the 1990s, those are part of my early days. And when they could say that you are going to Kampala, like for instance, you're sick, you could know that you'll come back healed. I mean, the services that were being delivered at the time, the population was matching with admission. I mean, the admission, the number, the profile. But now, whereas the government was having a good plan to have the extension of expansion of the health service provision through the construction of Ruwa Hospital, all of a sudden this project has stalled for these years. I do believe, as you say, that no politician should have goodwill. I know that matter was reminded before the floor of Parliament. But after that, when we were facing the time of mourning for the late Jacob Bolanya, finally it again disappeared.
No. Well, that came then when we lost our former speaker, may his soul rest in peace, the Right Honorable Bolanya. But after the burial, that matter again arose. And indeed, the speaker guided. There is a select team that is actually pursuing that matter. It is worth mentioning that let's look at Kampala Central, where we are. Kampala Central is a city that has been here, I think, for over maybe 100 years. From time memorial, we've been having the Kisenyi Health Center, I think 5, and the City Hall Clinic. I beg to be guided. I don't know of any health facility within the CBD. Yet the population has grown over, I think, 60 times.
Yes, very much.
So if you don't have such essential services, yet population has grown, it means then you are not giving them the essential service. Later on, you don't expect them to be very healthy and be very productive. So these are all the things we need to address. We need to address the issue of infrastructure. Coming here, it took me close to 1 hour from Parliament. If you walk from Parliament to here, you need less than 10 minutes. That is an issue of road infrastructure, which is dead. We need flyovers. If we can't do this, then there's no way we are going to beat deadline. Because sometimes you'd say, let me use a bike. But what happens when it is raining? What happens you have document and you're going to court? You need to drive. So government has to put in sufficient infrastructure. The roads. We need to improve on education. All the schools we have within here are schools that existed then. The population has gone up.
Did you enjoy
the drainage facilities?
Yes, sir.
is dead. The water we drink, we are not very certain that it is very fresh. Every time, and then you see when it is raining, the drainage facilities is dead. But our leaders are busy fighting in these cities, in the halls.
So our appeal to leaders, stop fighting, and we are tired of this.
And there's also an issue of corruption.
Yes.
We should observe zero tolerance to corruption. If someone is implicated on corrupt issues, let the law take its course.
Okay, let's go for the commercial break. We'll come back, we'll talk about the effective financing of these cities to operate. I will bring it as one of the critical points. We can have cities by name, but if the financing and the accountability as part of it, which we've talked about, is very poor, we cannot realize the set targets that these cities are supposed to achieve, so that by 2050, the projection of Uganda to be urbanized at 20% as one of the quickest urbanized nation, so that we can achieve it. We can have good statements, but my appeal to us, I'm very positive, it should realize what we mean. Stay tuned to Smart 24 TV as we meet the next session for this last session.